another episode of Entrepreneur Empire. And today we have an astounding gentleman that is here today, Mr. George Brooks. Mr. George Brooks is the CEO of the Meta Association, and it is a nonprofit organization committed to advocacy and awareness for decriminalizing and destigmatizing that which concerns mental illness. And you have helped former inmates reintegrate into society. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am doing fine, thank you. Wow, you have helped inmates reintegrate back into society. Could you tell us your name and a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is George Brooks. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. Um, a little bit about myself. I battled mental illness pretty much all my life. And I went through certain things such as divorce trauma, custody, addiction, and all those things up until about 4 years ago. I left my hometown, relocated to Dallas, and as part of my recovery, I felt compelled by God to create my nonprofit Meta Association as a way to use what I had been through, my experience, and the trauma that I have endured to try to help make lives better for other people, especially those dealing with mental illness in the Black community.
Okay. Um, what has helped you to survive?
Faith, for one, uh, just basically taking it day by day, dealing with those issues, trying to develop good coping skills, healthy habits, developing healthier relationships. In turn, that means being estranged from certain family members because they are toxic, and doing whatever I had to do to try to sustain myself and get myself to the healthiest point where I can be of service to society.
So, do you think that it's important, even if it's family members, sometimes you have to break away?
Even if it's your own mama, if it's toxic and it's not healthy and it's making you sick, you have to cut it off and let it go. Otherwise, you're going to end up suffering, and all it's going to do is cause more trauma and more heartache for you. So, I'm of the mind of no matter who it is, they're bringing negativity and trauma and stress to your life. You need to be able to cut them off.
Amen. Amen. Um, and since you've overcome, um, how do you help others?
Through advocacy work, through efforts through my nonprofit. I'm in talks right now to create a co-parenting course with my son's former school, looking at doing some public speaking to spread awareness and help destigmatize mental illness, especially in the Black community. That is my focus. I'm also working with several other nonprofits in a collaborative effort to do things here in the city of Memphis and in general. So I'm pretty diverse as far as what I want to do and efforts, but that is a challenge, but it's something that we've been able to do wholeheartedly and we enjoy it.
Uh, well, congratulations on your journey and being able to help others.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and you and your nonprofit, y'all help men only?
No, we help anyone. I've gotten calls from as far away as Scotland or the UK due to various interviews I've done, and I've tried my best to help those people. Um, I primarily focus on Black men just because we're sort of ignored, and I feel
Mm,
as though me being a Black male, I have to start at home first. Um, and but I will help anyone. I'm actually on the board of directors of a women's organization that fights human trafficking, so I'm open to helping anyone that needs help.
amen. Um, what do you think causes mental health?
It can be twofold. Much of it is genetic, and the rest
Mm,
can be environmental. Um, it runs in my family. If we all experience a relative that has a mental illness, so it's been proven to be genetic. It's actually physical. The brain, if you do a brain scan of a person with bipolar, as opposed to someone without bipolar, the brain scans are different. So it's actually a biological issue. It actually is a disorder and a disease, but it can be environmental depending on someone's circumstances.
okay. Wow. Um, I know experiencing and like loneliness and social isolation and some social, disadvantages like poverty that can cause it as well,
Right.
including racism.
Right, and that's one thing too. That generational trauma from racism, from institutional racism has an effect on Black mental health, not just Black men. And that's one thing we're looking to address also is ways to cope and deal with those issues in a way that's going to be conducive to people healing, to our people healing.
Mm, okay, okay. And do you think it's possible to recover from a mental health
Uh,
if you take certain steps, of course?
you'll always if you have a mental illness, it'll pretty much always be there. Well, let me put it this way: I liken it to diabetes. I'm also a diabetic and a heart failure patient,
Oh,
and with my diabetes, it'll never be cured. I can manage it and treat it, but it'll never be cured. And it's the same with
mhm.
mental illness. You'll never cure it if you have it, but you'll have to treat it and management just like a lifelong health issue, no different than having cancer or diabetes or anything else. It has to be treated.
And what are certain steps or ways that you can go about to ensure that you're having a healthier lifestyle?
Just trying to do things. One big thing is diet. And when I speak of diet, it's twofold. It's not just what we eat and what we consume, is what we consume in terms of society and social media.
Yes.
So we have to be careful about what we eat and what we take in every day. The songs we listen to, the people we're around, all
Mm,
that goes into your mental health. So that's the first step. Exercise is important. Being healthy in general is important, and also being open to getting treatment. If there's something going on, you should go talk to someone. If you were having heart palpitations, you would likely go see a cardiologist. So if you're having emotional or mental issues, you should just, likewise go seek help, go talk to someone. That doesn't mean that you're crazy. That doesn't mean that you're somehow less than or inferior. It just means that you're taking care of another aspect of your health.
mm, I like that. That incorporating your exercise with the mental as well as the physical is definitely needed. And finding ways to do activities like, even if it's coloring, if you go back to when you was a child, if you colored, if you danced, if you would sing, whatever that is that made you feel good on the inside, try to tap into it. Even though you're an adult, try to tap into your inner child sometimes to bring some happiness and some safety to
Right.
yourself.
And that's something that in today's society we don't do. Right now, we're such a go grind mentality in today's society that is really not helpful. And I found in my own experience a couple years ago when I started Meta, I was grinding all the time, working 20 hours a day, and I noticed that I was just wearing myself down and not getting as much done. But when I started to explore through therapy more coping skills and try to compartmentalize my life, it got better. And one important aspect of mental health that many of us as Black people don't take advantage of is therapy. Talk
Mm.
therapy is important. To me, my mental health encompasses three tenets: the spiritual, the talk therapy, and the medication. And with those three, I've been able to thrive and been able to do well.
That is amazing. You also wanted to talk about compliance and coping while in a relationship. What were your steps?
My first step was taking accountability for my own health and realizing that I was the one responsible for it. That no one else was responsible for making sure I was well. No one else was responsible for my happiness or well being but me. And once I did that, once I took that sense of accountability, it really emboldened me to be active, to try to be compliant. I'm very compliant with my medication, with my therapy. I treat it as though it's like me breathing because I know that without that, the increased chances of an episode or me faltering are apparent. So you have to be compliant. It's like I said, it's just like my diabetes. If I don't take my insulin, I'm going to be sick.
And that
It's
is so
the
true.
same thing. And with mental health, we often negate the term health. We think of it just the mental part and not the health part, but the two go together and combine in order for our overall wellness.
That is so true. They have to be balanced in order to
Right,
live to live a happy life
right,
and be either, no matter if it's your professional life as well.
correct.
Um, and there are four types of mental health. You have your depression, like bipolar, then you have your anxiety disorders, your personality, and the psychotic, like schizophrenia. Do you have you had to deal with any of those, and was it difficult?
I myself am bipolar. I started showing signs of bipolarism at about age 7. Um, so at that time, they didn't diagnose it in people that young. So
Mm,
through my adolescence, they just treated the depression aspect, and I wasn't diagnosed until age 25. I'm 44 now, and even once I was diagnosed, it took about 15 years to really find a regimen that worked. So I do live with bipolar, PTSD, and dissociative identity disorder. And through my struggles and journey and my experiences, I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every day, but I try to take that and apply that to people that need help. Not everyone is able to articulate what's going on with them. Not everyone is able to represent themselves. Not everyone knows how to deal with it. So I try to do the best I can to help people.
mm. I heard. Could you tell us a little bit more about the dissociation disorder? I don't think
Uh,
I've heard of
yeah, it's usually called DID, dissociative identity disorder, and it's typically caused by trauma. And what happens is that when you enter a stressful situation or moments of great anxiety, you sort of detach from yourself. Feels as almost as though you're floating. And
mm,
typically, what that happens, the best way to treat it is just to rest and try to stay calm. So it's just something that comes up every now and again. But I've learned personally to deal with it, and it's something that I try to help others deal with. The thing is, it's better now than what it used to be, but oftentimes people are misdiagnosed or overdiagnosed or underdiagnosed, and the reason being is that people aren't honest with the doctors because they're afraid of being stigmatized, they're afraid of being labeled, and you know the main thing in dealing with any health issue is to be honest with your clinician. If your blood pressure is through the roof, well, you have to tell your doctor you ate a pot of ham hocks. You can't leave that out and think that you're going to get adequate care. So it's the same with the mental health. You need to be honest about what's going on, and the way to get to that is by us as a people learning to communicate,
mm.
learning to stigmatize, learning to be honest, learning to be compassionate, and with that, you'll find more people getting help and adequate help that'll help them improve their existence.
That is so true. So true. What do you think about the effects that it has in relationships?
It can be detrimental to relationships. I know with bipolar, you usually don't do well in relationships because you
Mm,
have to you have to in a relationship, your partner has to be willing to accept, understand, and live with you on that journey. And not everyone can do that because it can be very difficult. So it can be very difficult in relationships to foster healthy relationships. But I find that if you deal with yourself first, if you deal with your
mm,
issues first, if you're a whole person, that makes it better as far as dealing with relationships, not just romantic relationships, but any relationship.
yes, that is so true. I think unhealthy relationships, such as like codependent relationships that involve domestic violence, can cause secondary mental health issues.
Right.
And it gives you low self esteem, anxiety, and post traumatic stress. It really, really does.
Yes.
Um, was there any mental health challenges that you had in your relationship?
Yeah. For a long time, my bipolar was untreated, so I wasn't necessarily the healthiest person, myself personally. So of course that affected my marriage. I was married for 16 years. It affected my relationship with my kids and people in society and just functioning until I really got to the point where I was well enough to deal with myself.
Mm,
And as part of dealing with my mental illness and the tumult of it, I self-medicated. I developed an addiction. And I had to get over all that to get to the point where I am now. But before I could deal with the addiction, I had to deal with the mental health first because that was causing the addiction. That's what was driving and pushing it. So it's really a matter of being accountable where you can be. Um,
mm,
Now, there are circumstances and conditions that are more difficult or people can't control, such as schizophrenia, where they may need more help. But you really got to be accountable and hold yourself to be an adult and deal with your issues where you can, because people are going to be depending on you, and you want to live a certain quality of life as well. So all that ties into it.
yes, that is very good. What do you think are some of the red flags to look out for in someone with a mental health or bipolar?
As far as bipolar, mood swings. If you go from being extremely excited and jubilant to being depressed, there's a sense of agitation. Um, just certain behaviors, anything that seems, a little bit out of the norm, that's something I would get checked out, because we do physicals. We're supposed to do annual physicals for our health. Well, I think that people should do annual checkups for their mental health. Just go and talk to someone, tell them what's going on, and be honest and be forthright, and stay on top of that, because until you get that diagnosis and get treatment, it won't get any better. And understand that there's a difference between a chronic mental illness and a situational mental illness. I have chronic issues, but many people have situational issues where they may go through a divorce and that may cause a mental health crisis. They may go through the pandemic and that may cause one. So it won't be something that's necessarily lifelong, but it's something that you still need to address to keep it from being exacerbated.
You really hit home when you talked about the COVID and the other signs to look for, because COVID, it changed a lot of people because there was a lot of deaths and a lot of sadness going on. I mean, you had to stay in the house, confined. Um, so yes, and a lot of people, like you said, are not don't get treated for bipolar, so they don't know what to look for and how to ask for help. So thank you for that. Um, so you are a Batman fan, really?
Yes, have been all my life. Huge Batman
Or I
fan.
should say Batmanic.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's part of the self-care, is having things you enjoy and being fans of things, and engaging in them. My son's a big video gamer, so I spend time with him.
Mm,
And self-care is important, not only in dealing with mental health, but dealing with someone without those issues, because it keeps us healthy. I think it keeps our minds young, our spirits young. So I try to take time now to participate in things I enjoy. I'm an anime fan also, so all that is part of my day. And I found that when I started integrating more of that into my daily life, things got better. It made the bad days not seem as bad, and that's something that's extremely important.
yes, yes. Um, I find that dancing and reading books and just finding some quiet time, even if it's just for an hour, you know.
Right.
And then sometimes you plan something that's yearly for yourself, you
Right.
know. Just like you do your goals and your aspirations for your job and your business, you have to plan those times for yourself, weekly, monthly, and yearly,
Right.
because it's very important, or you'll get burned out and drained.
Yeah, and burnout is a big problem, not just for those of us with mental illness, but everyone. I think we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves in society to be a certain way to conform to society's norms, and
Mhm.
that's a big part of our problem. Um, a lot of people I see are kind of chasing things that are elusive, and chasing things that really aren't that important. We're chasing the material, we're chasing money, we should be chasing a certain spiritual level and a certain peace of mind, and the rest of that will come in turn.
Yes, yes. Because that personal journey will affect your professional journey as
Right,
well. Um,
exactly.
if it's not balanced, it's not going to be good. And you'll still be struggling and you don't understand why. Um, and when you're feeling sad and confused and you're thinking abilities of fear and excess and worries, um, what are some of your triggers and how do you know when they're coming on and how do you take steps to shift?
I think some of my triggers are uh, basically trauma induced. Um, just certain things. If someone speaks to me in a certain way, that'll trigger me. That'll harken me back to something. Stressful situations, and the way I try to deal with them is try to stay calm. Where now I do that now, as opposed to a point a couple years ago where I didn't always do that, and that just iterates the process that you have to go through to heal. And but
Mm,
you have to recognize your triggers and be accountable for them, and recognize that people aren't going to tiptoe around you to avoid your triggers. So you have to find your own way to deal with them. You can't expect the world to not come at you a certain way because it's your trigger. You have to learn and heal and treat yourself to where those triggers aren't as devastating, and have coping mechanisms where when those triggers come up, you can deal with them more effectively. They may never go away, but at least you can manage them.
Mm, that was very, very enlightening because some of the things that you just said, I know I need to do what I don't do.
Hmm.
So it just clicked just then. You know how you had that aha moment.
Right.
Um, and what are some of the takeaways that you could give to the audience um, about activities that they can do or when and know how to seek help?
Um, the first thing I would say is be honest with yourself. Uh, Seek help despite what anybody around you says, because at the end of the day, it's your life. You're the one that has to live it. Be patient and seek help. Seek help. There are many resources now where if you know, the stigma of therapy in the Black culture is so prevalent that now you can seek therapy anonymously. You can do it online. You can go to your psychiatrist appointment online without anyone knowing, but seek some sort of help if you feel like you need it.
Um, a lot of people need to know that you can seek help online because a lot of people don't. They want and need someone to talk to, but you just said to be able to do it anonymously, like you know, that is interesting.
Yeah, and especially with the fact that we're married to our devices now. We use them for everything else. We use them for TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We can also should also use that to facilitate our own healing. And that means doing research. That means Googling. That means speaking to people. There are online support groups where you could be anonymous. There's so many resources out there right now. And now that we are aware, more aware in having discussions about mental illness, there's really no excuse not to try to get help. Even
Mm,
if you think you're okay, just go in for a checkup. Just going for, I mean, we do it with our cars. We do it when we go to the doctor. We have to start treating our mind and emotions the same way as we do our materials.
yes.
The way we covet them, we must covet ourselves and covet ourselves spiritually as well, and try to be whole.
What are some of the services and programs that you have in your organization?
Well, right now we're doing referrals. We do referrals for other organizations that partner with people that call us from out of state. I get calls all the time from people that are needing help, and I try my best to offer resources for them. I do a ton of public speaking to try to destigmatize and educate and enlighten about mental illness. We've got several programs we're trying to do some things with the city of Memphis to help improve the lives of the disabled and mentally ill here.
Mm,
Maybe talking to the mayor's office and working with the county on some things, and developing courses and other things to try to help spread the word and get people to get help. Um, that's the thing. If you don't get help, you can't get any better.
mm, amen to that. Um, what inspired you to want to help the former inmates?
I'm blessed in the sense I've never been justice affected at all, but my father was for a while, and a lot of my friends and you know uh, peers have been, and I saw the struggles that they were having in terms of their mental health and in terms of having resources when they were released that would help them be successful, because we expect a lot out of them.
Mm,
Uh, we expect them to come out and fly straight, but we need to make it as smooth a transition as possible. That doesn't mean giving them handouts. That just means having resources in place. And I feel that just being incarcerated itself is traumatic. And we release people oftentimes with no aftercare, with no afterthought, with no forethought about what they do next. So part of my work in Med Association is to try to provide resources and avenues for people to get that help. Last year, I was teaching a job readiness course for people that had been incarcerated. That was very rewarding. And I try to do things like that. I actually had a conversation today about doing some work in the prison system, and I was part of my prison ministry. So that's something I feel is very important.
mm. Yes, I think that inmates and veterans um, need it the most.
Right.
because, you know, and they're not getting the help that they need or deserve. So I applaud you for helping. Um,
And the thing is, these people, everyone comes back to our community. And who do we want to have in our community? Do we want to have people that have resources to try to live well and be safe and be happy? Or do we want to just throw people out there and just let whatever happens, happens? And the recidivism rate for 10 years after prison is about close to 90%. And that's ridiculous. So that's the thing I'm trying to work to change, or at least stem the tide on that.
wow, 90%.
It's like 89, 90%
Huge.
after 10 years.
Mm. Um, can you tell us a little bit about a time when you had to overcome an obstacle, and how did you overcome it in your organization?
Um, in my organization, my big thing is funding, because you would think a nonprofit would have grants and donations, kind of plentiful, but it's not that way. I've been self-funding this for 4 years the whole time. That's the biggest challenge, is the financial part, because these programs cost, and I often find myself doing much of the work myself. And we're at a point of growth right now where donations are going to have to be solicited and donated in order to help us continue our work, because we are supporting the community. And in turn, this community needs to support us, because we're the ones really doing the work. If you're going to sit around and wait on the government to do something for you, you're going to be waiting. And it's time for us, especially us as Black people, to start doing for ourselves and not waiting on someone else to come in and do it for us, because that's not going to happen.
Yes, yes. Um, and I wanted to ask that question because I know some people want to pursue a nonprofit organization, and you're quite certified in answering those questions, and giving some takeaways to the audience as well, if they want to pursue that niche in that field.
Right.
And you can tell the audience something about yourself that um, was challenging for you personally, that you had to do in your professional life.
Professionally, you know, some of this is due to me being in the city I was in, where there's not really a lot of camaraderie among people. So I would, in my early 20s, I would work jobs, good jobs, but it was just a challenge moving up, because it was more of a who you know instead of what you know situation. And that got me very frustrated. And all that did was exacerbate my mental health issues, because I was dealing with the frustration. I was dealing with the unrealized ambition that I had. And until I moved to Dallas and was able to do some more things there, it was a lingering issue. And I'm temporarily back here in Memphis trying to do help, and I'm seeing sort of the same thing. So it's that same challenge again, but at least now I'm working for myself and not trying to do with everyone else. So employment and dealing with mental illness is a huge issue. That's been a huge challenge for me, and I know it is for other people. So maybe in time we can work on things and possibly work with companies to try to find ways to make it more manageable for those that are employees that are dealing with mental illness, where they can be more productive and there's and reduce turnover and make the company more profitable.
Mm.
Like I said, it was just frustrating, uh, being young and being ambitious and trying to work in a society and with people who kind of ridicule that. So that caused a lot of frustration, and I'm sure it didn't do much for my mental illness at that younger age, especially being that young with the onset of it. You typically really get the onset in your late teens and early 20s, and it was about that time. But that's why I chose to forge my own path and start my own business and do my other own business interests. So I didn't have that hanging over me. Um, those with mental illness find it hard to find gainful employment. So I want to create a society to where if you cannot find that gainful employment in a way that fulfills you, you have avenues to where you can go and be an entrepreneur, where you can do your own thing, where you can forge your own path. So that's something that's really important to me as well.
Um, in the workforce, do you think that men have it just as hard as women do, is try to find confidence in themselves and their self esteem? Or
I
do you think
think
that that's an issue?
I think in some way we have it harder because we're so much more heavily stigmatized. Um, no matter what we do, no matter where we go, we're always seen as the lowest. And I noticed that a lot of times black women, have it hard, but they do a little bit better than us a lot of times. And some of that is our own doing. But I think that the important thing is to try, as especially as black people, is to collaborate between the sexes and
Mm,
have those dialogue and find out those things to where we can combine and get along better. Because right now there's so much friction between men and women, and I feel like that's caused by communication,
yes.
a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy.
Mm,
Until we can work on ourselves as individuals, we have nothing to bring to the table. So once we heal ourselves and work on ourselves as men, we'll be better for women, better for society, and we'll notice that economically things will improve. Mental illness can lead to economic destruction as far as not being able to function or not having the foresight to pursue things that are going to be lucrative. So all that ties into mental health, and it's my belief that everything begins and ends there. If you don't have a healthy society, you won't have a prosperous society.
mm, that is so good. That is so true as well. And I think that men have it just as hard as women. But I think as women, we hide it a little better
Yeah,
because we wear so many hats: the wife, the mom, the cook. You have to go out there and get a job. You're taking care of kids or grandkids, no matter what it is. And all is piled up, and people are like, okay, you got that. Or, oh, I see that you're handling that well. Here goes something else.
right. And as men, we're not taught to be in tune with our emotions anyway.
Mm,
We're taught to stuff them down, suppress them, not discuss them, not show emotion, and we really got to get over that because all that is a pressure cooker, and at some point it's going to blow. Whether it comes out through anger, whether it comes out through apathy, whether it comes out through addiction, womanizing, all those things, and that all ties into our mental health and being able to deal with our emotions and communicate. Uh, Alongside mental health, there's emotional intelligence. And that's something that we have to try to work on as well in conjunction with dealing with our mental health.
good one. Yeah, I didn't realize it myself. Um, I want to thank you for your time. Could you tell the audience how they can reach you on your platforms or if you have an electronic press kit?
Yes, they can reach me through our website, which is metaassociation.org. That's METTA association.org. You can give us a call at 901 631 4300, or you can also email us at gbrooks at metaassociation.org. And we also have our information about our organization, what we've been up to, some events that we've held, and also ways you can support and donate. So please visit our site, metaassociation.org, or give us a call at 901 631 4300.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question for you, though, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I heard you say that you have a son. And by you having a son and being a male yourself, do you think that it's important to teach your sons? Because we do teach our daughters, it's okay to cry and it's not okay to cry. Um, do you teach your sons that? And is it okay for men to cry? Because
Yeah, yeah, I've
you know,
always told them that. I've
yes,
got
about
an 18-year-old that is bipolar, and that's been a struggle raising a bipolar black male who just turned 18. So that's still scary for me. But I've always taught my boys and my stepchildren to emote, to speak, to get those emotions out, to express them. Even if you can't do it verbally, draw something, write something, listen to music, get that stuff out and process it. If you don't process it, it just builds up, and you don't want to be a hoarder of bad emotions. So you want to be
mm,
able to process and express yourself, whether it be through crying or even if you need to go out and find a field and yell for a couple of minutes. But do something to get that emotion out, to deal with it, to make sure that you're accountable for it, and that you don't let it be a hindrance to you.
yes, yes. Because I think as men, they hold it in so much and they only know how to come out as being angry and loud. It's okay to talk in a calm voice sometimes.
That's
So,
right.
I do want to thank you for your time. This was an inspiring conversation and an interview. Um, until next time, as always, be bold, be beautiful, be blessed. We do accept donations and sponsorships. Until next time, and thank you for watching Entrepreneurial Empire.